Welcome back to Piece of Work. I'm Danielle Tantone, and today I'm here with JD Tremblay. We were chatting right before about how to say that French name incorrectly. He's from Montreal, from French Canada, and I'm excited to have him on here. He is an ultra triathlete, he's a naturopathic practitioner, and he has a program called Hungry Warrior Academy for men that helps them physically, mentally, and spiritually become stronger in all different ways. So I'm looking forward to getting to know him and what goodies he has for us. I'll let you, JD, do a little bit better of a brief intro to yourself and how you found yourself here on the Piece of Work podcast today.
Yeah. Thank you, Danielle, for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
I'm the director of high performance at Hungry Warrior Academy. And as you mentioned, we do help men grow with clarity through our DECA system.
Tell us more about this DECA system. You were telling me about it right before we hit record. But first of all, where does the name come from? Tell us about the EpicDeca and all of that. That'd
Yeah,
be exciting and
yeah,
crazy.
definitely. So the EpicDeca is an event that happened based out of a company called Epic 5, which was built by Rich Roll. He had done a lot of Ironmans and then an Ultraman, and then he said there needs to be something more. So he built the Epic 5. The Epic 5 is 5 Ironman distances on 5 islands in 5 days.
And for the person who's listening who might not know the Ironman distances, can you go over what is one Ironman? Pretty incredible.
Correct. It's far from the guy who's in his basement building a metal suit, talking to sharks. It's 140.6 miles of swimming, biking, and running. So 2.4 miles of swimming, 112 miles of cycling, and then you follow it up with 26.2 miles of running.
A full freaking marathon after doing all that other swimming and
Right, because it's never
biking.
enough.
Crazy. Because a
Right?
marathon by itself isn't enough.
When you look at the origin of the marathon, it's quite the story. Philippe, the messenger, was sent from Marathon to Athens to say that the war was over. Ran 42 kilometers, and when he got there, he delivered the message and then fell down and died.
And we
Legend or
decided
not,
this would be a good idea for us to just do this for fun,
exactly.
for sport.
And then they said, how about we do a swimming marathon and then a cycling marathon and mash all of this together?
Crazy.
And then later, throughout the history, there are 10 people that decided this would be a good idea to register in a race where you would do 10 of those in 10 days on all 6 Hawaiian islands and just hop from one island to the next.
Thus the EpicDeca. That is
Exactly. So,
crazy.
so
Well,
now it becomes 1,406 miles of swimming, biking, and running throughout all of the islands in Hawaii, which is quite beautiful. I just live the experience differently than
you
watching from a
explored
bus.
Hawaii at a different level.
Yeah.
But it is amazing having not done at all anywhere close to that level of athletic endeavor, but having experienced running and biking and stuff in beautiful places. It is an amazing way to see a place and to really get to know it. I ran the Berlin Marathon in 2013, and that's by no means a feat like what you have done, but it was pretty darn cool to like literally jump over the Berlin Wall and be like, oh, here was where the Berlin Wall was, and I just hopped over it in my marathon, and that was neat. So there is something special about running by the ocean or running through the forest or running through a city. You're experiencing it at a visceral level, I think. But that said, even though I'm trying to show some sort of connection to what you're doing, that is incomprehensible to do 10 in 10 days. So there's no sleeping. You have to travel from one place to the next. Tell us a little bit more about what that involves, what skills and strengths allowed you to do that, and then how that translates to the work that you do for other people.
My whole childhood, my upbringing, the military service, everything brought me to that place where now I was just ready for it. I joined the military from a young age. When I was a child, everybody was telling me the military has a lot of discipline. And then when I joined, I noticed that a lot of people are undisciplined. Now, there are some military members that are disciplined, but they contrast was that there are some people that follow the structure and then become disciplined. And then there are some people that are completely undisciplined because they don't follow a structure. So that's what I discovered. And that's what I, again, am able to impart with the clients. The way that people see discipline is that it's not fun and you have to wake up at a certain time, or you have to put on your running shoes and you have to go run. Or so what I came up with is a fun way to build discipline in their life, because a lot of people are talking about making their bed, like Jordan Peterson. It's a great advice, but it's for someone who is at the point where they want to end it all. This is, you have no other choice but to do one thing in your day. And if you have only that one thing, then you will survive. Making your bed is at the very basic.
Right.
But even if you forget to do your bed, here's another way to build discipline and then enjoyment, and then also find your capacity. And it's to find that non-negotiable. So as for me, even if I ask you the question, what is my non-negotiable? So within my 24-hour period, what do you think I did? And you would not be too far off if you said it has something to do with fitness. So I did work out for sure today. I am going to work out later on because I'm training for a big race coming up. So again, I understood that this was my capacity. Now, for some people, it might be cooking. It might be that they like to work on cars, or it might be that they're enjoying dancing or singing. There are other ways to build that discipline. But if you wake up every morning, you enjoy dancing, and then you wake up every morning and you start dancing, you will become better at dancing eventually. You're building that discipline. And what you'll discover is that eventually it will trickle down to other parts of your life because you build discipline with one part which you enjoy. So now at that point, you don't have to wake up at 4 in the morning. You don't have to do a
Right.
cold plunge. You don't have to do all of you're dancing. Like, this is your non-negotiable. That's it. Why? Because this is what you are enjoying, but then you're building discipline over time.
Hmm.
And that's what I discovered with, again, with the military, with me, my experience. I saw that I was built for working out. Now, I enjoyed pushing weights, but then when I got injured, I had nowhere to turn to. So I turned to triathlon, and I started swimming, biking, running, and then I really enjoyed it. It really helped my mental state, and then I built the discipline over time. Once I got to the EpicDeca, to me, it was a no-brainer with going for the EpicDeca because I wanted to be different. I wanted to do a race that nobody had done before. So to be the first in history to cross the finish line in a race like this, or to be the first one to accomplish something that others would think that it's completely crazy. And
Completely impossible.
like my
Hmm.
grandfather was crying. No, my grandson is going to die.
Now, was there any point during that race when you did think, maybe I should stop? Maybe I am actually endangering my life here? Or were you always sure that
No,
what you
I
were
was
doing was
always
okay?
in. I was always in because when I registered for I was registered for a lot of other races, but I had spent my money to register for races. So you can tell that I was single, because no one would have told me that it was a good idea to just spend your money on all doing a lot of races around the world. And
Yeah, they're not cheap.
yeah, oh yeah. So now this race comes along. There was this doctor. He got hit by a car. He was one of the 10 people to register for the EpicDeca. They were only taking 10 people because it was for the 10-year anniversary for the Epic 5. He says on Facebook, I cannot do the EpicDeca anymore because I have to go through rehab. There was this voice in my head that said, how about you inquire if you can buy it from him? Which I'm $20,000 in debt, and $15,000 is needed just to register. And
Wow.
then I need 4 people to crew for me on top of that. But I inquire anyway. I said it doesn't cost anything to just ask for it. So I asked Joe if I can buy it from him. He said yes. I found 4 people to crew for me. It was in the middle of COVID too. And
Wow.
every even the government, they were looking for nurses. And somehow I had 2 of them that already had done either an Ultraman or crewed in those types of events. So it was fitting perfectly. So I said, I have 4 people. The 2 nurses, Sarah and Michelle, were the crew chief in their own respective teams. And they were 2 on, 2 off. So, or 2 on, 2 off. One day it's one crew, and then the next day it's another crew. And then they would alternate.
They got to rest, but not you.
No, no rest for me. So I still needed the money. I wrote down on a piece of paper how much I needed. I prayed about it. And a lady came to clean my house because I was doing renovations, but I did not want to clean all the dust. And she came to clean. She said, have you ever thought about selling your house? I said, yeah, I've been trying to sell it a few years, but it doesn't sell. She said, I have my real estate license. Okay. Since you have your real estate license, yeah,
Go ahead and
maybe
sell
you
it.
can sell it. So she said, yep, I can sell your house. So I sold my house.
Wow.
And now I am homeless, but
Homeless, but you can afford the race.
I can afford the race. That's the exact same way that I looked at it. I said, yes, I can afford a raise. I can afford a new bicycle.
We all have our priorities for our money. That is,
Right?
totally
Exactly.
legit.
I was really committed, Danielle. So I sold my house. I still don't regret it at all. Flew those 4 people. I paid for their flight ticket, all the flight ticket, the hotels, the food, all the incidental, like everything, just everything with my crew and me.
And this is
And
back in 2020, 2021. You said during COVID.
2022. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 2022 in May. Yeah. So really, it's coming to
Almost 4
the
years.
yeah, it's been already 4 years since, which again, a lot has changed. Now I'm doing very well financially. Like
It
I'm
comes
doing well
around.
now.
Do what you love and the money will follow, right? Or something like
It's
that.
some form of a passion, but the hard times were after the EpicDeca, not necessarily during or before. So that's why when your question was asked, did you at one point think that you would not finish? No, I showed up on the start line and it was, I must finish because this is my house. So I showed up on the start line fully knowing that I would finish. I even told the organizers too. I was on a Zoom call and they said, oh, you were looking for the money for the race. How did you find it? And I said, oh, I sold my house. And he said, we can't allow this. This is not going to be a great story. What if you don't finish? And then I just started laughing. Yeah, I just, yeah, I sold my house. I never denied it. Didn't lie. But they said, "Oh, yeah, it's a joke. Yeah, this guy is a joker. Yeah, definitely." No, I really did, but I never told them after that.
That's your prerogative. You don't have to own a house. You could rent.
Well, I was after coming back to a storage unit, sleeping with boxes, like little air mattress, and then having to rebuild everything from the ground up.
Yeah.
That's where I was questioning a little bit if I did the right choice. But during the race, no, I showed up on the 4th day, and my crew chief, based on the numbers that I was pushing on the past 3 days, she said, you're not going to make it for the final run, for this run for tonight. So between the bike and the run of the 4th day, she said, she sat me down in the hotel room as I was in my transition. And she said, JD, you're not going to make it based on the map. Like you're
Mm,
stopping too much and you're
mm.
not going to make it. So I said, no, I have to finish. She said, look, I can find another way to maybe switch you to the Epic 5 because the Epic Deca was going. and it was 6 island, but the Epic 5 was going at the same time, just different days, essentially. So I said, no, I am here for the EpicDeca and I must finish. JD, if you tell me why, then maybe I can help you. And I heard that before. That's what the police uses all the time. That's what all of these people, that's what they use. I'm here to help you. And then you
Right.
find out they're not. So I said, no, I'm not telling anyone why. I knew in my head. Yeah,
Why were you so determined not to tell anyone?
because the organizer said at the beginning, selling your house is too drastic. So
Mm,
you can't race if you sold your house.
that's so silly. That doesn't even make sense to me.
They don't want people to be selling their houses to go on races, right? I'm still
Yeah.
not advocating for selling your house and going to do a race. I'm still not advocating for it. It worked out for me. I had a plan in place. But again, you don't want to show this. And the other part is, I do not really know these people either. When
Yeah.
you don't know people, like it's different than if my life is in their hand right now. You don't want to show too much. So you want to make sure that you are still in control and they know that you are in control of the situation. I was going through certain types of injuries like blisters and my shoulder was hurting, but again, I was determined to keep going and finish this race. I sold my house. So yeah, in
Mhm.
my mind, I was going to finish, definitely. I did not burn the ships, in essence. I sold the house. So
Right.
I, yeah,
All
I'm
right. So you
happy with
sold your
this.
house, you finished the race, and then have you done it again since then? Or was that a one-time thing?
Yeah, that was the only time that it happened because it was for the 10
Okay.
year
The 10-year
anniversary.
anniversary.
Yeah.
Nice.
So then I finished it. Even that day, I just ran a lot more and I just kept priming myself, knowing that I had this deadline. So I had to finish much faster than all the other times. And I did finish. But as soon as I finished, I took a shower real quick. We slept for not even half an hour, so my legs did not even have time to recover. I was carrying my Normatec boots. I was in my underwear, and then my crew would just zip up my boots, plug them, and I would fall asleep in my boots for half an hour.
Oh my
And then they would
gosh.
wake me up. They just, oh, there you go. All right, we gotta go to the airport. Let's go. I'm like,
Can't
you
even
got half an
imagine.
hour of sleep. Okay, let's go. Then I get to the airport on the fourth day. That's when it really kicked in because now my IT bands are tight. It was my birthday at the time,
Oh.
and then oh, it was a memorable one for sure.
I was gonna say, how old were you turning?
30, what, 36? Yeah, I'm turning 40 in a couple of weeks. So,
Wow. 40's a good one. Don't worry.
oh, yeah, I'm going to the island of Malta for the Trail Half Marathon World Championship. So I'm racing the
Cool.
world. That's what I'm doing for my 40th birthday. I got a lot more miles on this body.
Totally. Yep. You can keep getting stronger.
Oh,
Is
my IT band is shut. I have difficulty walking. Minimize on a lot of civilian clothes or clothes that were not meant for the race. So I only brought one pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and someone stole them. Well, now I end up with a girl's hoodie and in my underwear in a at the airport.
Wait, why did you need to minimize your stuff so much? You had a crew. Couldn't they carry your stuff for you?
Yeah, so we were taking small airplanes. So our crew, they were not allowed to have a baggage under the plane,
Wow.
only their carry-on, and that's for all four members. And then for me, I was only allowed to have, I think it was 2 bags and then my bike.
Yeah.
So we were very limited. And then I wanted to maximize on the amount of nutrition that I was carrying. And I even went as far as carrying my own breakfast. So I would carry like a greens and a type of protein and
Mhm.
some oatmeal. So I would have everything. I would have a plastic container with a plastic spoon so I can eat in the plane. And then
Nice.
now I ate. I maximize all my time so I can sleep a little bit and then just keep going and not have to digest.
So
Yep.
what are the lessons that you learned through that?
We all have to face some challenges in life. And we always think that the limit is right in front of us. And we have those limiting beliefs,
Sure.
understanding that we can't achieve more.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden we reach another stage and somehow we see, oh, there was this, I am able to accomplish a half marathon, or I'm able to finish a marathon. Or it can be that I didn't think I was able to go to this country and be free. And all of a sudden you end up in this
Right.
country, you're traveling the world. And I'm saying this because there are some people's limiting belief. They don't even want to travel. They don't even want to leave. I know my grandfather was like that. Never left the small village where we live
Totally.
and always stayed like this.
Mm.
All of a sudden you challenge your beliefs and then you end up in another world having a different perspective of how you can achieve more. So I always say, if your goals don't scare you, then set the bar higher. And
Mm.
so I definitely did set the bar really high
Yeah.
and I wanted to push it even more. So yeah, I keep doing these events and that's what I learned about it.
Very cool. Yeah, I experienced that on a much smaller scale when I first started running and I was in my 30s and I had always hated running. And then I got involved in this running group. It all started with I wanted to run a triathlon. I was into cycling and I was like, okay, I can learn how to swim. I know how to swim, but I can learn how to swim in a sportive way. And then I can learn how to run, surely. So I started running and then I eventually worked up to a half marathon. I finished that half marathon. It was in San Diego in like 2010. And I said, okay, that was cool. But there is no way in hell I could ever run twice that. I can't even comprehend that. There's no way. And then the next weekend, I was doing my long run with my group that I run with, and we ran 14 miles. And I was like, wait, I just ran another mile more than my 13 miles that I ran in the half marathon. And it wasn't really any harder. And if I just increased by 1 mile every week or two, I'll pretty much be at a marathon pretty soon. So, like what you were saying, if you realize, okay, I just did something I thought was impossible, and now I can do it a little bit more.
Yep.
So that
Which
was
goes to other parts of your life. And that's why I
absolutely.
say start with something that is your non-negotiable, that is fun, and maybe it's dancing. And then all of a sudden you end up in competition about dancing on
Mhm.
stage, you win $1 million, and then you're excited about it, but you would have never reached that level had you not just started with finding
Start
a non-negotiable and started with something that you enjoy, which you're going to build discipline and it's going to navigate you into other parts of your life.
very
Yeah,
cool.
that's what I learned from the EpicDeca. The other one that I learned was how to remain humble. So yes, I did achieve a lot, but there's nothing special about me. I am courageous. And the definition of courage is to create some form of action in spite of fear. It's not a superpower. I still have fears, but I choose to perform even though I am scared. I was really scared, and I don't think I've ever said this on a podcast, but I don't cry often, but I remember I got accepted for the EpicDeca. I had sold my house. I had my son in the northern part of Quebec. It's in the snow. And I had built a harness that I would carry my son up mountains, and I just put on the harness and I told my son, you have 2 minutes to be in that sled or I'm leaving. Like I have to go. I have to go right now. I'm going for a run. And so he hurried up. He loves going outside anyway. Hopped in the sled. So I had my ski goggles and just running and it's on the snow. And I cried. I was scared. I was really scared. But I also understood that I was going to do it. I was committed. How else, right? I
Mhm.
was doing everything I could to make sure that I was going to finish that race and that I was going to push those limits. I had no idea how it would all turn out. I just needed to have faith. And I'm talking about faith as in not even knowing what the outcome is going to be, but knowing that everything is going to work out, knowing that God had all of the other variables that were in his control. He has the control over that. And then for the rest, I'll take care of it. To me, it was like that.
It's
So
beautiful. So you mentioned earlier when we were chatting before we started recording that you're not really big on talking about feelings. I want to explore that a little bit and what you mean by that, because even when you were talking about crying, it were almost like you said, I don't cry very often.
yeah,
What's this deal with the feelings? What do you mean when you say you think we get caught up on feelings? I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm just
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to understand what
No,
you
it's
mean
it's
by
based on facts because we have laws in Canada, right? One of them is firefighting. If I have the equipment and the training, I touch a door and I hear screaming, and there's a high likelihood that if I go through the door and I can save someone. If I radio in and I say I don't feel good or I don't feel right, legally the fire chief has to pull me out like this out of the fire and then replace me, and by that time you're losing precious seconds because a fire generally grows every 8 seconds. It doubles, and so that's depending on the type of materials that are inside of it. That's a different story, but again, based on feelings, based on emotions, based on facts, it's
So you're not saying don't feel your feelings. You're not saying bury your
um,
feelings or don't feel joy, don't feel sad, don't feel angry. You're talking about not living not making decisions only based on feelings or
exactly, is that now a firefighter understand I am sad, but I have a job to do.
I don't know if I mentioned that on top of everything else that you do, you're also a volunteer firefighter. So you
Yeah,
literally rescue babies out of burning buildings in
yeah,
in your free time.
yeah. That's in my spare time.
Yeah.
When you do like what do you do on, I don't know, a Friday night? You're hanging from a fire truck or climbing a mountain. The idea, the concept is that those feelings are there to experience life. You're
Mm.
going to be sad, you're going to be happy. It's not to suppress these feelings or these emotions. Is that despite having these feelings and these emotions, you're able to be a functional human being.
Hmm.
Is that now you're basing your decision based on facts, logic, science, not on some entity that you can't recreate. Even if you pick the same person in the same context, you might get a completely different result with this
Based on,
exact same stimuli.
yeah,
And so you're
makes
not
sense.
able to have a true statistics.
That's human nature. That's the nature of dealing with humans is that we're not
But
robots.
that's not how they're teaching you in universities how to
Hmm.
behave. And that's why to us, we are completely different than all of our competitors. Now, they have their target market, they're making money, that's fine. But going on these retreats, getting yelled at and using profanity is a certain target market. What will happen is it will appeal to someone who need this form of sadistic transformation and is somehow required to have this rite of passage by being yelled at.
Tell me about your system. What do you offer that's
Yeah,
different?
it's more of a special forces. In the special forces, they teach you how to operate with others, have some sense of community, change your identity. For us, our standards and our foundation is based on Epic. And so it's eternal restoration. You need to lean on something or someone that is outside of yourself, preferably Christianity. You're going to find out that it's the absolute value. And you'll find that this entity is controlling all of these variables that you aren't. And if you're able to rely on that person, I call him God or Jesus, then you're basing all of your decision based on an absolute, based on a true value. And so now you're able to tap into some form of protection that now you understand this has been tested before. It's not just based on my own experience, which is very limited because we live a short amount of time on Earth. Then you got the physical temple, which is that a lot of people are reading or in the Bible or praying. That's all good, right? Meditation is all fine. But at the same time, you still need to take care of your body. And so then we can break it down to understanding what are their values, what are their goals, and then we break it down even further with our brain acronym: blood chemistry, recovery, attention, inflammation, and the nervous system, to really dive in, to provide them with data points so that they can make better decisions based on it.
So
So
who are your clients? Who do you help?
yeah, we've had a lot of executives and we've had elite athletes also come through our programs.
And is this program in person in Canada, or is it online, or do you have some different options?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have online courses. We have one starting very soon. And then we also have in person. We've been doing some workshops. We have one coming up in California.
Tell the person who's listening where they can find you. Do you have a website, social media?
Yeah, we have hungrywarrioracademy.com. They can book a call, see if we're the right fit.
This is so interesting. I think that our work integrates in a lot of ways, and I'm so glad that you found me. Anything else that you want to share with anybody who's listening who may be having a hard time or having a big goal or anything?
Yeah, if they want to reach out to us and see if we're the right fit, then yeah, they can become our friends.
Sounds good. Merci.
Merci, Daniel.
All right. À la prochaine.
On se revoit bientôt.
JD is one of those guests who leaves you with a lot to sit with, so I wanted to take just a few minutes to pull out what I think are the 5 biggest lessons from that conversation, because they apply whether you're training for a triathlon or just trying to get through the week. Lesson 1, your non-negotiable is your foundation. JD doesn't prescribe a 4 a.m. wake up or a cold plunge or making your bed. He says, find the one thing you actually love doing and do it every day without exception. For him, it's fitness. For you, it might be dancing, cooking, writing. It doesn't matter. That daily non-negotiable builds discipline in a way that actually sticks. And then, this is the important part, it bleeds into every other area of your life. Lesson 2, your limits are a moving target. I shared my own version of this in the episode when I ran my first half marathon, and then the very next week ran 14 miles and thought, wait, I just did the thing I thought was impossible. JD lived that on a scale most of us can't even fathom. The EpicDeca wasn't just about fitness. It was proof that the wall you think you've hit is almost never the actual wall. Lesson 3, commitment removes the option to quit. When JD sold his house to fund that race, he wasn't being reckless. He was eliminating the exit. He showed up on the start line knowing he would finish. Not hoping, knowing. There's something powerful about making a decision so fully that turning back just isn't in the conversation anymore. Lesson 4, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in spite of it. JD described running in the snow in Quebec, pulling his son in a sled, crying under his ski goggles because he was terrified, and then he kept going anyway. He said it himself. Courage is creating action in spite of fear. It's not a superpower, it's a choice, one that all of us are capable of making. Lesson 5, facts over feelings doesn't mean feelings don't matter. That might be the most nuanced thing JD said, and I want to make sure it lands right. He's not telling you to suppress your emotions or pretend everything is fine. He's saying, feel what you feel and then make your decisions based on something more solid than the feeling of the moment. A firefighter can be sad and still do their job. You can be scared and still take the leap. You can be grieving and still get up. The feelings are real. They're just not always a reliable compass. So there you have it. 5 lessons from a guy who ran 10 Ironmans in 10 days, slept in half-hour increments, ended up in an airport in a stranger's hoodie, and still says he has 0 regrets. If you want to connect with JD, check out hungrywarrioracademy.com. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs a little kick in the direction of their next big thing. I'm Danielle Tantone. We are all a piece of work, a work in progress, and a work of art.